I had another day. I had another chance to make another choice, to face another challenge. So I chose God, but I chose also, I found that I had more than one choice. I chose to be here. I chose to be here because I have a passion for history. And I found that passion back in, about 1977. I had just gotten married, and I was standing in the courthouse, and they had some large books like I'd never seen before, beneath us there, right at the counter, and I wanted to know what they were. The clerk told me that those were birth, marriage, and death records. I said, wow. She said, those are records from people who were here from the inception of this county. And I said, So as I speak today, it may be a little history lesson for some, but not others. And it's good to see a lot of people here. Brother Mitchell, so good to see you. It's good to see you from Smith County there. I believe that's it. I might have it wrong. Or Wesley. I'm sorry. Yes. And Deborah as well. But so many, Jackie and Glenda Ford. Now, let me tell you about Miss Ford. A little quick story. When I was in the 6th grade, I ran for president of student council. And she wrote my speech for me to run. And I still remember the title of that speech. And it was, I am what I am. A man, nothing more and nothing less. Thank you, Glenda, because I won that election. Now, let us get on with the business at hand. All right. As far as Gregg County's history, I was told by that clerk that Gregg County started in 1871. What I was told was that they had negotiated terms with other counties by the state government through the federal authorities at the time of Reconstruction to divide up Harrison County, Upshur County, and Rusk County, and to take a portion of it and to create Gregg County. Rusk County gave their part. Upshur County gave their part. Harrison County did not give their part. And so Gregg County was thus formed. Now, when Gregg County came into being, there were people who were coming out of slavery. And in the little community where I lived and grew up, where Post Oak Church, Pleasant Green, and what a lot of us from this area know as across the river. We don't describe it as out by Lake Cherokee. We don't describe it by a lot of different names. We just say across the river. And that connotation, if you will study your history, you will find that that has a significant meaning across the river. The Sabine River, before slavery was ever brought into Texas, the Sabine River was a place of refuge and a place of safety because the Mexican government had already abolished slavery. And if you could get across the river, you were supposed to be free. But that was not necessarily so, but it was a place that people looked forward to. And so that term across the river stuck. Now, during the time that I found my passion for history, it caused me to do a lot of research and reading. And I've been a genealogist now for 47 years. I've had the distinct honor of helping get a man off of death row. I was contacted several years ago by a guy from California, from the Riverside County Public Defender's Office. And he gave me one of the humblingest accolades that a person can receive. He told me that he had been told that I was the foremost authority on black genealogy in East Texas. And I said, oh, that's awful kind of you, sir, but I can accept that one. He said, well, it came from a reliable source, a lady at the Nicholson Library named Dottie. She gave me your name and wanted you to talk with us because we have a case here where a guy has killed someone, and he is from Longview, Texas. We would like for you to do some research to find out about his history. And so I accepted, and I found out some things about him. I was able to find where the school records were kept for the black schools here in Longview. Nobody seemed to be able to tell me where they were located. And after searching at the new Longview High School and the Gregg County Airport and so many other places, I finally found them at the Gregg County Courthouse in the library section. Okay. I found that this man was born to a 14-year-old girl, and his father was much older, and he killed a man a few blocks from here on Center Street at a hamburger place. And the man that he killed had killed a man previous. And I believe it said he decapitated him. And so the man that killed him, which was this boy's father, he went to jail for a short period of time, and he got out. And when he got out, they had a dance one night. And so the boy's mother had gone to the dance, and the man that had gotten out of prison went to the dance, as well as his younger brother. And the boy's mother wanted to go home. She was still a young girl at the time. But the father didn't want to leave. So the younger brother said, I'll take you home, and he did. And when the older brother, who was drinking, got home, he began to argue with his younger brother, and he chased him around the house with a gun. And the younger brother went inside and retrieved a shotgun and blew him away. And I was able to talk to that man, and I had to, one of my jobs was not only to do the research, but to set up appointments for the investigators to talk with this man. And so I called him up, and he was living in California. I called him up and told him that there were some investigators and private detectives wanted to talk to him about his nephew. And when he came and spoke to the man, he said, I understand that you killed your brother. And he said, oh yes, I sure did. It was me or him. I did, yes. And this man was about 80 years old at the time. So I've been able to do things like that. Now, with a name like Snoddy, S-N-O-D-D-Y, not two O's, not two T's, but two D's. It makes you wonder, where did that name come from? So when I was looking in that large book at the county clerk's office, I wanted to go and I said, so you can go back to the first Snoddy in this county? She said, probably so. Yes, I'm sure. So I went back and I looked in that book, and I did. I found a guy by the name of Snoddy. I said, wow. And I guess it was a time period of about 1876, or 1872. And that piqued my interest. Now, there are several of you that are in here without you probably knowing it. I have researched some of your family's histories. Some of your histories have been intertwined with some of my research. Brother Wesley, I did something for your cousins not long ago. Mr. Arthur was your uncle. I was engaged to Mr. Wesley's cousin. Tragically, one night when she left my house, she was murdered. And so I have a fondness for people who've played an important role in my life. Miss Fort, her family comes from the Portleys. It was her father's, that was her paternal side. And I know about them. I've researched and did history for them. But when you want to know about your history, I found this to be very important. If we do not learn from our history, we're destined to repeat it. I'm not going to get political up here, but I think it is a travesty to deny certain knowledge that is out there to be taught. It's not to make people ashamed, but to let them be aware of what this country is made of and what helped form it to make it great. I believe that we would have been a lot more at ease if we'd have heard someone say, let's make America great, and not let's make it great again. Because when we think about again, that means that we're going back to something. And we're not trying to go back. We're trying to go forward. So, now, moving on. My great-great-grandfather's name came up in that book. His name was Snoddy. I didn't know where he had come from. I didn't know anything about him, but as the years went by, I started talking to other people, a lot of elderly people in my family, who are gone on to glory now. And I'm glad that I spoke to them. And it's important that we share this with our youth about the things that we know. Because one day we're going to be gone. And those things will be lost if you don't write them down. And I tell everybody that I do a family history of, put that with your family Bible so that you will know where it is. And you can always refer back to that. I had some documents I wanted to bring this morning, and I looked and I couldn't find them. I looked all around my family Bible and couldn't find them, so I'm not even good at taking my own. But I found that Smith County would be a good place to look, so I went to the Smith County Courthouse. When I went to the Smith County Courthouse, I saw that there was a Snoddy that was there in Smith County. But he was white. But other than Marshall, Texas, he was the only other Snoddy that I knew of in East Texas. So I went to Smith County, and when I did, I saw that he had died in 1858. And so he left what they called an inventory of estate. And on his inventory of estate, he had to list his property. Part of his property was his slaves. And as I read the names of those slaves, I came across Thad Snoddy. And I wept. I wept. And the reason that I wept was because I had found something that was lost. And it had been lost for over 130 years. No one knew exactly about him but now. And as I continued to research that, I was able to find where the former slave owners were even buried. And went to their grave sites. When I parked my car at this large cemetery, I got out and thought I had to look over thousands of graves. My car was less than from here to the next room from their graves. Talking about how God works. Then as I found that out, I started doing other research. So I was going to a National Baptist Convention in Huntsville, Alabama. Went there, got there about 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, too early to check into the hotel. So my wife and I said, let's go and just park at the courthouse. And when they open, we can go in and I can do some research. I want to see about the Snoddies that are from here, because I studied and saw where the guy Thomas Snoddy was actually from Huntsville County, Alabama. So when the courthouse opened at 9 o'clock, I went in and the clerk told me, I'm sorry, sir, but the information that you want is not here. It's over at the library. That's where you need to go. So I said, okay. So we went to the library, but we had to wait till 10 o'clock. When 10 o'clock came, we went in, went to the genealogy department, and I asked the lady, ma'am, could you show me anything on Daniel Snoddy? She said, just a second, sir. She said, would you like his information or the slave's information? Wow, that blew me away. So I said, I'd like to see both. She said, just a minute. Few minutes, they came with 3 boxes about the size of this, about the size of the top of this. 3 boxes, and they sit them on these desks. There was a petition in one of the boxes, and it had slaves. So as I began to read and peruse through those documents of the slaves, I saw where in 1828, Daniel Snoddy died, leaving 2 small children. 3 small children. And a wife. Well, I kept looking and I saw the names of those slaves. And as I kept reading and perusing through those documents, I saw where when he died, women could not own property at that time. So Daniel Snoddy's slaves had been given to his father-in-law to be a guardian of them until those children became of age. When this happened, I don't know what transpired, and anything on my part would just be conjecture. But something happened, and I don't believe it was just that consciousness arose that they should be free, but Edmund and Lucy, who were their slaves with 3 small children, had started running away. Have copies of documents where Davis Neal, the guardian of these slaves for his grandchildren, petitioned the judge of Huntsville County to sell them because they had become troublesome by running away. And when a slave ran away, you had to pay the jailer who would house them. The people who would go track them down, you had to pay them. And so it was a nuisance and a burden financially. So he wanted to sell them. And the judge relented and said yes. So they were sold at the courthouse steps 3 years later in 1832. I looked at the name of these children who were left behind of the slaves. Their names were Thomas, Mary, and Lucinda. All right. Wow. Okay. So now I'm thinking about Smith County, this guy named Thad. Thad is not born. Thad was only born in around 1851. But I'm back now in 1832, 1827, 28. And all of a sudden, I look at the age of these children, because it does list their age. And it says that Thomas is 8, Mary is 6, Lucinda is 5. And this is in 1828. And when I did the math, I looked at what it said, and I knew what my family knew, that Thad Snoddy left the plantation in Smith County in 1865, and he came to Gregg County, or Upshur County at that time, to live with his aunt. And his aunt's name was Mary Smith. And I looked at the age of Mary Smith and compared it to the age of this little girl. And once again, I will. And those were 2 times during my genealogical research that I've been touched so emotionally. And I don't know if anybody in here will know what it means to be sold away from your children. To have your children taken from you. And to not know if you will ever see them again. Ever. And when I realized that I was looking at the grandparents, Edmund and Lucy, who were sold, those were the grandparents of Thad. And that little girl, Mary, was his aunt. And all I could do was just cry. Because it was as if I could hear my great-great-great-great grandmother, Lucy, or Lucinda, sang, "I'm found." My children found me. This boy has found me. Edmund, we fine. So that's the importance of historical research for me. Now, there are so many things that I could go talk about, but I look at the trip that took place from Huntsville County, Alabama to here. And the reason that it took place was that there was a guy in Tyler who they named Irving Street after, T.B. Irving. He had a daughter by the name of Catherine. Thomas Irving, his daughter, she attracted this guy, L.B. Snoddy, and he followed them all the way to Texas. He must have really liked that woman. From Alabama all the way to Texas. That sounds like something I used to say when I was a young man. If I really liked a woman, I'd say I'd crawl 5 miles on naked knees and broken glass. Just to bring you a glass of water. So this man must have really loved that woman. But Irwin said yes, and he married her. When he married her, he was able to retrieve his slaves. And that's when my folks came to Tyler. The rest is history, because soon as slavery ended there, he came to the Shiloh area. And there was a lady from the Mosley plantation up at Clarksville. Her name was Julia. He married her and they had 13 children around 1871. And my great-great-grandfather, my great-grandfather was one of those children, and he was probably named after his father, who was that little boy in Huntsville named Thomas. And Thomas had a sister named Rachel. And Rachel married Berger Christian. That's how Deborah and our family came to be close. Berger Christian, he and Rachel named their first boy after Rachel's brother, Thomas Christian. And not knowing my family history, unbeknown to me, that young lady who was standing there with me that I had just married, was Thomas Christian's granddaughter. So I didn't realize that I was marrying my third cousin. We have a beautiful daughter. All right, come on back. She attended Harvard. She graduated Leslie, and she just recently, last year, got a master's degree in law studies at Pepperdine. I'll be going out there in May to watch her graduate, if God says the same. So, all went well there. So life is good. We take what we can from what God gives us, and we make the best of it. And our history shouldn't be overlooked. I think that's my phone. It's probably spam. It'll stop. But I thank you for sharing your ears with me, and I thank you for letting me use this time. But I'm going to go ahead and yield, and I thank Greg, Lindsay, and everybody.
I told you he had